We are live. We are live on Facebook. We are live on Zoom. Welcome back, everybody, to the Body and Soul Wisdom Podcast. I am super excited for today's conversation, and I know you're going to just love her. She's coming to us from Sun Valley, Idaho today. Her name is Pirie Grossman, and if you heard her bio and interview just before this, you're going to be so excited to join in the conversation today. So listeners on the show know that I am super passionate about supporting women through this paradigm shift that we are in, through new thought leadership, in feminine leadership, in the way that we show up in women in the world, redefining the way that we do business, redefining the way that we show up in our family, and particularly passionate in my own curiosity and interest for women of middle age, we'll just call ourselves. And this is where I am. This is the women that we serve. And I can't think of a better person to introduce to you than Pirie, who's going to walk us through 5 activator steps of pro-aging as women in the time that we're living in right now. So thank you so much for being with us today. It is an honor to share this space with you.
Oh, Jen, thank you. Thank you. It's such an honor to be here. We are so aligned in our mission, and it's wonderful to be around like-minded women, and to your listeners too. So thank you.
Thank you so much. In the intro, I didn't get much of a chance to share about your history in media, working in masculine industries. And I'm curious if you could just give us a snapshot of how you got to where you are. I know that there's been a couple of health related challenges, and you're a mother and you're a business owner, you're a speaker, you're an author. What would you say in your life story was really the driving force of what brought you here today?
Well, let me tell you a little bit of background. This might help, and I'm going to condense it. So I was raised by a schizophrenic mother. I had dealt with just walking around, narcissism and a lot in the family dynamic as a child. So my voice was not important. Who I was very inauthentic. I had no idea who I was. So from there, I ended up in Los Angeles and working in an industry, in the television industry, which kept that theme going in authenticity. I was really good at reading a prompter. I was great at interviewing, actors and directors and producers. I worked for Entertainment Television and Entertainment Tonight. So I got to be this persona. But when life goes on, I was in my 20s, back then, in my early 30s. And I had not really started my inner journey, but I knew as I was getting older, there were some things, survival skills that were no longer working for me. And I really became unhappy. So I started thinking about, well, then maybe if I find a relationship, a great love relationship, and I have kids. So I did that. I married a very famous producer. We had a big house in Bel Air, California. We had a lot of celebrity friends. And I was trying to have a child, or we were trying to have a child. And he had a daughter who I fell in love with, who was 6 years old. And I couldn't get pregnant for years. And I was in my 30s. And so I underwent a lot of infertility treatments, so much so I was doing them every other month. And those who are listening to me, they know how taxing they are to your body. And I noticed my husband pulling away. And I thought we were so in love. We were, that was that love relationship. Again, I was feeding from other people. I was feeding from people who had watched me on television to get that love. I was feeding off the husband to give me that love because I didn't have any self-love. So what happened from that experience, I was in the hospital in a coma for a few days. He never came to visit me. When I came home, he just very callously said, I want a divorce. You can't get pregnant. You can't have kids. That's why I got married. So it's done. Now, anyone who's gone through the fertility process, you have all these powerful drugs inside of you. And so I was so much in pain. My self-worth was 0. And I went from this person that you look at, wow, she looks like she's got it all together. But inside, Jen, I was so broken. I was shattered. And I was 39 years old at the time. And I thought, how can I start over? How can I start over? And where would I start? So I did the unthinkable. I tried to end my life. And obviously it didn't work. God had another plan. But I remember the takeaway for me is that I had a second chance. So I decided to move from California to Idaho. We had a second home there. And I decided it was time to really heal. I needed to heal from the childhood I had. I needed to heal from all the suffering and the pain. And I needed to figure out who I was. And that's the first step that as we talk about the 5 activator steps of reinvention, it's so important that we as women, that we know who we are now. And a lot of times at midlife, the kids have gone, maybe a divorce has occurred, and we're left at home and we look ourselves in the mirror eye to eye, and who do we see? Who are we really? So it's really starting with taking an inventory, a very, very deep and honest inventory of who we are now. Because when you do that, and when you find those answers out and you see the areas that you need to be healed, then you can move forward and recreate something that you really want to be.
And now you're in your 50s. You're in your 60s?
I am. I'm 66 years old. I turned 66.
How is that possible?
I'm going to be really, really honest. The biggest thing that helped me was getting rid of a lot of things inside of me that were not serving me. It was an inner journey. I went back to school. I got master's in spiritual psychology, and it was not to become a coach. It was to learn to forgive my mother. Because I couldn't keep going with that pain. I was also married and divorced 4 times. I was looking for love. I did not know how to love myself. And so I knew during the inner work, I could let go of a lot of things. I had a lot of autoimmune diseases. I had a lot of, which is what happens. The pain stays, it has memory. And if we don't release it and we don't release these toxic emotions, they age us, they make us sick, they make us stay in a rut, and we can't move. The other thing I did, of course, listen, I can do Botox, I can do skin lasers, I had to change my diet. I drank 20, at least, Diet Cokes a day for years. And I went with a friend on this week-long, hiking trip, no caffeine. I got so sick from that experience. I thought, I am never going to pick another can of that up again. Juicing, oxygenation baths, peptide therapies, hormones. I went through a real cleansing and trying to figure out how I could heal my body. And from a lot of those practices, it started working. It started making my skin better. It started making my hair better. It started, I'm not going to say that I haven't succumbed to having any other treatments. Of course I have, but it wasn't just for that purpose. I had to do the inner part first. And there are therapies, as you know, with your integrative background, the supplements, the juicing, all of those things help us. And I think that's what's most important in keeping us, young at heart and playing. Listen, I had to go to rehab. I was so addicted to sleeping pills. So I did that 10 years ago. And so all of that inner healing, I think, is what starts showing up on the outside too.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And that's probably a whole nother conversation, but I'm so grateful that you touched on that, because it's so true that our inner thoughts and beliefs really manifest physically, and it shows through our skin, through our facial expression, through our dis-ease, through our well-being. And oftentimes as women in today's world, we're not slowing down enough to actually think about what is really happening in my inner world How is my outer world reflecting all of this inner alchemy or turmoil that's really happening? So I love that you are able to just bring all of that together. I want to dive into a conversation more around supporting specifically middle-aged women. So 40s, 50s, 60s. You've obviously learned a lot throughout your journey. Thank you for sharing all of that, your relationship with your health, with mothering, with marriage, with appearing to have everything on the outside and having to really restart your life all over again, probably more than once. And I also know that in the world that I'm in, and what I truly believe is I know it with every ounce of my soul that we are in such an interesting and really an exciting time as women, where we get to choose to show up differently for the generations after us. I always think about someday I'm going to be somebody's ancestor. And the way that I started my life, and my listeners know, I went to a military service academy. I was an engineer. I was very, very masculine. And that was an old thought belief of that time in the 50s, 60s, 70s, which continued to filter down through generations to the children of the 80s and 90s, which would be me. And now we're in this time, I'm the mother of two daughters, where the children coming in are not even aligned to what we were raised to believe that we thought we had to be as women to show up in these, whether it's in executive culture or even entrepreneurial, in the spaces where we're trying to prove ourselves and to hustle because we don't believe that we have the self-worth. We are really in this shift right now where I am supporting women, and you are too, with your messaging, to redefining what that looks like, how we can show up. Your podcast, Own Your Own Throne, the book, the workbook that you've created to help women to do this inner work. And I'm finding that it's happening to a lot of people right now, right around the age that I'm at, 40s to 50s. Maybe they've had a corporate career where they're realizing that they've kind of sold their soul to the corporate career, or they were super unhappy. Maybe it's been an unhappy marriage for 20 years, and they're in this place of redefining because it hurts inside. They're seeing that there's a breakdown in their health, there's a breakdown in their marriage, and then there's a breakdown in their self-worth. So can you walk us through, because this is what you do, this is what you're an expert at, you speak to this, you write about it, you hold workshops. Can you walk us through the 5 activator steps? And as you walk us through those steps, tell us why, from your experience, it's so important at this time in life to really integrate and hone into what you're sharing.
Oh my goodness. How much time do we have?
Until your lunch break.
To my lunch break. I think the number one thing that women can start is, like I said, step 1, who am I now? I wrote a book, Conversations with Pirie, which is all about inspirational stories from women who changed and reinvented themselves at this age. A lot of them worked in corporate America. They burned out because they were showing up and being who they weren't naturally. And that's because of the narrative of leadership in the old days, I want to say. It's only recently changed in the past 3 years, since the pandemic, quite frankly. So women were based in leadership roles, in particular corporate American business, as, how do you perform? And a lot of it was male traits. It was, you didn't want to show up as a nurturer. You didn't want to show up as being empathetic. You didn't really want to show up as being a team player, because that meant you were vulnerable, and vulnerability was not a strength, right? So we learned to push ourselves. We learned to be authoritative. We didn't really want to get involved with the team. We didn't really want to get involved with our employees. We wanted to keep ourselves up here and them down here. We never really got to know people's names. It was just hitting the numbers, what are the production numbers? What did the company want to achieve, right? It was just just dog eat dog type of world. So women acting in that way was not being authentic. You could take on that personality, but it's truly a mask. Just as women that you've worked with, right? In the military and the CI and different places, it's a mask because it's not a natural state. The nurturing abilities are primarily held by women and their women leadership traits. So what's been happening now in the corporate world is since the pandemic, people want to go back to work in a different way. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to matter. So companies are restructuring now because overall they have goals to meet. They have numbers to meet. They have sales. They have things they need to meet. But who helps them meet them? It's people. It's not numbers. It's people. And so I think the dynamic is changing globally in a more of a humanity way. We're requiring more. And so now companies, when they start interviewing their, in their positions and they want these leaders, whether they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, or 50s, they're actually looking more for an EQ quality. And the EQ is the emotional intelligence. How good are you at having traits of empathy, of group, not having to take all the credit for others' ideas. There's a popular leadership model now. I don't know if you've watched the show Ted Lasso. Have you seen that show?
Absolutely love it. And I was just thinking, the episode I watched the other night was where she sits at the table with all the men and she completely Yes. Yeah. I love it.
Exactly. And so these nurturing or EQ qualities are not really gender related. They shouldn't be, because some of the younger men who are entering the force, I want to say young men like my son, they've got more of a natural EQ quality. So Ted Lasso, the leadership effect that he has is that he believes in his, the players. He's head of a soccer club. So he believes in them. He encourages them. He wants to know what's going on in their lives. He is giving them credit. It's the belief in who they are. And so for a natural leader, that is something that we feel like we're going to lose control, but you're not. You're gaining control because you're inviting them to be a part of it, right? So it's more of a team effort. It's more organic. It's not such a system where it's this individual system, like how much am I going to get out of it? How much credit am I going to get? So it's changing in leadership for women. And I think giving women permission, because we're really in that flux right now. We haven't completely gotten over to the other side. We're moving towards it. So women need to feel secure. If I show up at the table in my authentic way, is that going to be good enough? Is that the right way? But the right question is, how are you showing up that's authentic to you? Right? Not putting that mask on, trusting that those traits that you were invited to the table in the first place, they want. So many women have told me, men don't want us to show up that way. They want us to, be like them, be part of the boys club. That's not true. That's not true. Maybe some of the older autocratic type of men, but they're phasing out. You're invited to sit at the table as a woman because you've earned that. They've seen you work. They've seen how you lead. And that's what's most important. It's the same thing that you do in your personal life. When I work with some of my women that are in business and they want to be better leaders, I ask them, well, who are you as a person? Because our leadership skills are really based on our beliefs of who we are as a person. So if your belief is, and you still have an obstacle of believing I'm not good enough, and also the invisible woman syndrome, they're not seeing me, they're not hearing me. It's excuses after excuses after excuses. And it's also the whole imposter syndrome. I'm a fraud. I'm not good enough. Well, if you show up at the seat of the table as somebody that you're not, and you're trying to take on male leadership attributes, then you are being an imposter. And that will already make you weak. That'll already not make you feel great. So there are tools and strategies that you can work on that actually help you eliminate those kind of obstacles so that you can show up more authentically. And it is inner work, because whatever you're doing today and what you're focusing on today is what's creating your tomorrow. So I always tell people, whether it's in work and whether it's in personal life, start doing the inner journey with yourself. So you go from step one, who am I now? What do I believe in? And list those things which you think positive and negative, because there's going to be a lot of limiting beliefs in there, right? And there's going to be some values that maybe need to change. The second one, who do I want to become? And that's not who do I want to become as far as another job, career. It could be, but what are some things you want to reinvent about yourself personally? Because reinvention isn't just about a job change or a city change or a relationship change. It's also a belief change. It's also, maybe you haven't paid particular attention to your health. So you want to reinvent something new. I see myself as a healthy person. So you're going to change some habits, right? And then the third step is vision. What kind of vision do you have for yourself? And that's really the moral compass. So for instance, I'm in the process right now of buying a new home, and it's taking me out of my comfort zone. It's a little bit more than what I want to spend, but it's never the thing that fulfills us. It's the vision of how are you going to feel living in that vision? It's also the same thing in a relationship. It's not about the guy being 6 foot tall or he has this and that, blah, 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 or the woman. How do you want to feel in that relationship? That's the juju. That's the juice that keeps us going. Because the home that I want to build, I'm envisioning my kids, I'm envisioning them bringing their college kids there. I'm envisioning way down the line, grandchildren, so I see each room in that house and I play in my head what I see, how I'm going to feel. The fourth step and the biggest step in the 5 steps is obstacles. And those are just nothing but excuses. So you break them down, because there's 2 questions that I always ask my clients, and these are important ones. The first one is, what are you getting from staying stuck in your life? What's the payoff that you're getting by staying stuck? The second thing, what is it costing you to hold on to that payoff? Because I got to tell you something, right now in today's world, we have to wake up. Nobody else is going to do it for us, Jen. It is, you take responsibility for your life. We do have the power to co-create, but we're not going to get it by osmosis. So you really have to ask yourself, are you willing to do what it takes to get what you really, really want in life? There's some work to it, but the payoff is so big, because ultimately at the end of your life, do you want to have any regrets? 90% of people on their deathbed have regrets in their life. And it's not about the things that they failed at. It's the things they really, really wanted to do, but they didn't even try. And they look back on their life and they think, wow, I lived a life according to what other people wanted me to be. And women do that more than anybody else. So the question is not to have regrets. It's never too late. Okay. I'm 66. I'm still reinventing things. I met a 96-year-old woman who became a YouTube star because she wanted to be the best grandmother to the world, Sassy Grandoris. And, she died last year at 96, but her dream was fulfilled. So think about all those excuses, write them down. I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm not rich, blah, blah, blah. I can't do it because of this. Those are all mental gremlins that need to be shut up. And you can. There's strategies for you to do that. But more importantly, really dig down and say, am I living the life I want? Am I being the person I really want to be? And that shows up in every area of your life, every single area. You can tell I get excited about this.
Oh my gosh, we're literally speaking the same language. There's so many things that I wrote down as you were speaking. I love everything that you said. One of the things I teach is the feminine leadership method, and I wholeheartedly believe in the value of somatic style coaching, which is really the embodiment, the feeling of the the vision in the future. And I believe somewhere, and I read that you even interviewed Maya Angelou, like you've had the experience. So isn't it so interesting that the former version of you allowed you those experiences to now be where you are? I love how life unfolds like that. Like we never really know that where we are is the vehicle for the next thing, and we don't know how the whole story is going to unfold. And that's pretty amazing that you had that experience as well. And yeah, I mean, that there's I can't remember the name of the book, but I think it's actually called Five Regrets. Have you read that book? And it talks about how the regrets are not the things that we do, they're the things that we don't do. And in the beginning of this conversation, we talked a lot about how that can manifest physically in our well-being. You can see it in our face, you can see it in our body language, you can actually physically see it, you can feel it, the emotions of anger and resentment. I mean, I can't tell you how many women I know that have thyroid dysfunction or have their gallbladder removed. And a lot of that is resentment, not speaking their truth, not expressing. There's 100% an energetic, emotional component to all of that. And it's so important to release that toxicity while also nourishing yourself and resourcing yourself in all of those ways. And if you're a woman listening to the show right now and you're feeling it like I'm feeling it, you're feeling it like Pirie's feeling it right now, you know that you're meant to do something more in your life. I want to guide the conversation a little bit as we're probably going to have to wrap this up at the end of the hour pretty soon, and speak to why it's so important right now for women who are resonating with this conversation to take aligned action on that dream. So when they know who they are, when they know who they want to become, which by the way is a wonderful reason to have a coach or a mentor, because coaches and mentors will always guide you into that version that you are becoming. They're not going to look, we've all had really, really crappy things happen to us. They're not going to let you sit in that victimhood and stir in that, indecision, procrastination, the fear. Like we've all had really crappy stuff happen. It looks different on the outside, but on the inside, we all feel the same. We feel rejected, we feel abandoned, we feel betrayed. And there's no deeper source of pain than our own self-betrayal, self-rejection, which is ultimately what's happening when you talk about sitting at the seat of the table as a feminine leader, denying the truth of who you are because it doesn't feel safe or whatever that is. What's really happening under the surface is we're denying our truth, and we're not serving generations of women that are coming in that leadership role in the corporate world. And as entrepreneurs, which I am, I left corporate 17 years ago because I believed I have a growth mindset. I believed I could create a bigger impact. And I'm seeing it everywhere in my world. A lot of my clients are entrepreneurs because I'm seeing this shift in our taking ownership of our time and money and our gifts, and not being the breadwinners like we were. Like a lot of women past 10, 20 years have been breadwinners and mothers and have become quite resentful because they are doing it all. So it's not the doing it all anymore. It's doing it with intention, but also being resourced and receiving more. And the reason that it matters so much, and I want to have this conversation, is because then we get to amplify those values into the world. We get to grow that belief system. We get to grow that consciousness that says, I 100% support you showing up in your vulnerability, in compassion, and in that space of authenticity, because it's that Marianne Williamson poem. When we shine our light, we give others permission to do the same. Like I live by that every day. And as a person who has facilitated retreats for almost 10 years, mostly for women, but I also had to facilitate for men to do my own healing. And I've seen what men are seeking and what they're going through that has led us to where we are. The thing that comes through in all of that is how deeply, especially these really strong women, are seeking to be seen and heard and supported, just like you shared with that Ted Lasso show. Like the world is seeking this leadership and this this new way of being, this new way of living. And one of the ways that I am seeing growth in women is becoming entrepreneurs and business owners. And it's never too late. So can you tell me from where you are in your life, what you're seeing around middle-aged women? Maybe they've had a 20-year corporate career, but women like us are not wired to just like sit and like watch the world go by. Like that's just not how we're wired. So we get to take that imprinting, that energy, and we get to continue to give into the world, but we show up in a healthy way because it's no longer seeking validation. Can you share a little bit about what you're seeing with the women that you're working with and how it's an exciting time where we get to contribute to that greater collective consciousness by amplifying these values, and how it's important for us to be resourced financially, be resourced with healthy food and in love, so that we can continue as a collective of women to grow. And by the way, we're being so supported by the men right now. Like the men who are really aware of this, they want this. They want us to be this way. Yes. I'm curious about your perspective and what you're seeing in that shift.
Well, there's so many, I have the clients who are professional women and they're in their 50s and they want to get out of the corporate world because what they really crave and their authentic belief is that they want to be able to go home and garden. They want to spend more time with their grandchildren, but their mindset won't let them. And that's what you touched on. So you talk about, the alpha females, we're always, working with an intention and purpose. And that's something different too. What gets me up in the morning is the purpose I have. And that is to teach women the tools and the strategies that I learned that shifted my life so much, because I wasn't going to be okay if I hadn't done the healing work. I wanted to do more. That's why I believe God gave me a second chance. That second chance was to be, and I need to step back a little bit, working with Maya Angelou. I was doing an interview with her, and I was in the middle of all that pain of what I was going through and trying to have a baby and do all this stuff. I weighed maybe 100 pounds when I interviewed her, because I came out of the hospital. It was a good friend of mine who's the producer of this show, Every Woman. He said, I need to get you back to work. You got to get back to your purpose. So I interviewed her. We became good friends. And she took me out in their backyard and she said, why are you in so much pain? And I just lost it. And I didn't have any self-respect in me anymore. I lost the only ounce that I had was being a professional. That was the only thing that helped me dig back up. It's like, I know I interview well. I know I'm curious. And she said something to me that has always stayed with me. She said, Pirie, you are a communicator. You communicate for those who don't have a voice. And I looked at her and I said, but I don't feel like I have a voice. And she said, well, then speak theirs. Be that person that can speak for them, for those people who can't. And that stayed with me. And so living a life of purpose is being able to speak the truth in vulnerability, share all of my, experiences and challenges I had in life, and be truthful about it, because I know we're all going through it. There's a lot of women going through all of this. So having purpose in life is really, really important. And that goes back to that step one. Who are you? Where do you want to begin? Changing a mindset so that you can do what you really want to do is key. There are some women that don't believe they could ever have a healthy relationship, and they stay stuck. I had dinner with a friend of mine last night, and she was just so stuck. She didn't think she deserved anything better. She thought, it was just constant. And I looked at her and I said, okay, I'm going to fight for you. And this is what we do as women, the sisterhood, the community. I said, I'm going to fight for you. I am not going to let you sit here and say that you only deserve this when you are the most amazing, beautiful, talented, strong woman who's got a story to tell. You need to write a book about your experience. And she looked at me, tears coming down. She goes, do you really believe that about me? I said, yes, but more importantly, I want to help you believe that about you. And it's the same thing. It's women have got to get out from this belief of imposter syndrome and invisible woman syndrome. And the only way you can do it, and this is the hard part, is if you take responsibility for the energy you bring into the room.
100%.
Take responsibility for the energy you bring into your life. So no more excuses. And when you stop, like me, when I stopped looking for the accolades outside, which didn't matter because I was so broken, look what I did. And when I learned to have some self-love and some compassion and really start believing who I was, that's where the strength came from. So married and divorced 4 times. I didn't believe I could pick the right men. I spent 12 years single. I decided to do the deep dive because I was the common denominator and the reason why those marriages didn't work. So maybe it was me that I needed to change. And I did. And I met this man 4 years ago who is amazing. We're like-minded. We've gone through similar things. We have similar values and beliefs. And I just got engaged a couple months ago. Yes, it's wedding number 5, but it's a different person. I kept marrying my mother. Okay. I kept marrying narcissistic people. And then when I finally believed that I loved myself and I had something to give, that mirror was an attraction to the man that was healthy because of the work I've done. He did work on him too. So it's never too late to fall in love. It's never too late to maybe get out of a relationship that's not serving you. It's not too late to maybe write a book. You don't have to have all these credentials and all these things out there that our minds are telling us, goes to the imposter syndrome. Who do you think you are? They're not an author. I have 2 best-selling books, and they've all came from experiences, and it came from my ability to go and ask for help and to do it. I was one of the first female co-chairs of Special Olympics World Games. Did I ever lead that before? No. But you know what? When a woman has that calling and that passion, you figure it out. So whatever obstacle anyone out there is going through, and you think you're not good enough, you think you can't do it, but it's that burning, it's that whisper in your ear telling you, do it, do it, do it. You will figure it out. Step into it. Step into it. Have the courage to step into it. And that's when you start seeing some changes.
I just want to touch on the 2 things that really ring true for me is it's time to take responsibility for your choices. And that doesn't mean that it's easy, but it's also that you get to be the author of your own life story. You get to choose, you get to really choose to take that step towards number 2, which is who you're going to become. And there are going to be obstacles.
Of course. And you welcome them because you're like, you make a list. I'll give you a simple tactic to use in obstacles. Write them down. It's mental gremlins. Just write them down. All the reasons why you can't do what you really want to do. Right. And then ask yourself at the end of it, is that true? Is that really true? And then on the other side of the page, write down what action you could take to make it true. And focus on that. As I said before, where you focus is where you go. There's another principle that's really important to remember. It's never the issue. It's how you handle the issue. We can't control other people. We can't control challenges, experience that come in our life. The only thing we can control is our response. So how are you responding to the issues that are happening in your life? And that's where that responsibility comes from, because you can control that. And that happens with our thoughts. It happens with our words, which goes into our actions. So at the end of the day, if you feel like crap and you don't know why, take out a piece of paper and just start writing down all the thoughts you had that day. 60,090 thoughts a day, 90% of them are negative. Well, let's flip that. How about if we change 60 to 90,000 thoughts a day that are positive? How would our lives look then? And that starts up here, and that goes into the brain. That goes into the neural pathways. Those are things and tools that, meditation, self-guided meditation. I mean, there's so many tools out there that you can learn from, so many apps that you can put on your phone to help you get there, to help you change your mind. The minute you have a negative thought, I say, delete, delete. I literally say those words. This is what I'm choosing to do. And you have to remember, emotions are only signals and flags that are telling you what needs to be healed inside of you. That's all they are.
Mhm.
So don't get mad at them. They're the messengers. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, I see this is what's really triggering me. School is in session. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, and we're here for soul's growth. This is Earth School.
Yeah.
So when someone triggers you next time, instead of saying, oh, I hate that person, I hate what they're saying, blah, 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 right? Ask yourself, why am I triggered by what they're saying? Why am I triggered? Go inward and write it out. I'm triggered because, and ask for guidance. What is this? That just means this is an opportunity to have more growth. So you see the difference when you don't take responsibility, you're just setting yourself up. You're giving all of your power away to one person or one situation. And it's like, no, you can change that around.
Mhm.
And that's when you start feeling better about yourself. That's when sicknesses start healing. That's when opportunities start coming your way. You're telling the universe, because it's all energetic anyway. Be careful of the people you surround yourself with. What are the people like that are around you? What are they saying to you? And what are you believing?
Mhm.
That's when you know. How do you feel when someone is in your presence? How does that person make you feel? If they make you not feel so great, what do? You don't invite them in. You say, thank you very much. You were a friend at a certain period of time. I'm doing something different now.
And that's such an important message I just want to pause for a moment when you say that, because one of the things that you're sharing is that our outer world is reflecting a lot of what's happening internally. And we do tend to attract people that are going to mirror some of our beliefs or the things that maybe it's time for us to work on. And I believe that whatever energy we enter a relationship with, whether it's a person or whether it's money or our body or our health, is the energy that gets expanded. And this is why doing the inner work is so important, because like you shared with your marriages, there was something under the surface and why you kept marrying your mother over and over again, because there was a part of you that was really seeking to probably trust yourself, to listen to yourself about who you were really worthy of receiving in your life, or something underneath that. So I think it's the most important thing that I really want the listeners to take away from this is that pay attention to what's happening, because we are so good at distracting ourselves with busyness right now. I don't even use the word busy anymore, because it really means you're misaligned. It just means that you don't value it, or you're not willing to prioritize it at this time. So really, it is easy to get distracted by busyness. But if something is really uncomfortable, if you're spending time with a person and you're walking away with migraines or your stomach is in knots, pay attention to those messages. And at the same time, it's not that we're making that person wrong. Just become very curious about what's happening in your internal state that is ready for you to lean into and just navigate. And rather than projecting or blaming and making everybody else wrong, really taking that ownership, that responsibility, that self-responsibility to either create a healthy boundary in that relationship, redefine that relationship or what your beliefs are about that relationship, whether it's person, health, or money, or your body, and keep taking those steps forward. And I agree with you. Daily practices, whatever they are, allow them to change, whether it's prayer, meditation, journaling. There's plenty of support out there. And one thing I want to highlight that you said is how important it is, and I cannot really stress this enough, like how important it is to surround yourself with support, with community, with friends, or coaching with women who see that higher version of you, because you will forget along the way. And you'll have moments where maybe you're in doubt, or you're, in fear. That's why it's so important to have those people in your back corner who are, like you shared with your friend, like, I want you to see the version of you that I see for you, because it really helps us to continue to grow and evolve as a collective and to support one another. And I love that you shared that.
It's so important. I think women are learning not to be so competitive with each other,
Mm-hmm.
and especially midlife women. We've done that. That's boring. It's old school, doesn't serve us. We're so much more powerful as a community, and we uplift one another. And that's the important thing for our daughters to see,
Mm-hmm.
and not giving up on your dreams so easily. I had more doctors than not tell me in my 40s, when I was still trying to have babies, there was no way I could do it. I found one doctor who said, it's a possibility. I didn't give up on my dream. I made some changes in my diet. I made some changes in how quality of life, with exercise, certain modalities of yoga. I mean, I embraced it all. I was able to have my 2 children. It was a big dream of mine that everybody else said it couldn't happen. I had my son when I was 44. I had my daughter when I was 46, naturally. And by the way, the husband that divorced me, he died 5 years after we divorced. So I would have, if I had a child with him, I would have been, raising the child by myself, and not for the right ways, not the right. You've got to believe that when certain things close, when those certain doors open, also being able to be sensitive and wise enough to ask yourself, you know what, maybe I shouldn't be knocking on that door. But it was just that particular door, that particular man. I still didn't give up on my dream. I had my children. The same thing in having my health again. Everybody kept giving up. You can't be healthy again, Pirie. Sorry, this is it. You can't get your head off the pillow. I get it. But I kept being, as you said before, being curious about your life. What is it that's stopping me? And asking questions, asking questions, asking questions. I found out one of the reasons I had autoimmune disease, I happened to have breast implants put in years ago. They somehow started leaking. I had silicone all throughout my body, all in my lymph nodes. That was making me sick. And I thought, oh my God, how do I do this? Well, take them out, right?
Yeah.
So I did. I took them out. My health improved within 3 days. And I wouldn't have known to do that. I would have just kept succumbing and kept listening to other people. Oh, you can't heal, you can't heal, you can't heal. Don't let that kind of mindset from other people stop you from finding what you need in your life. You are the biggest cheerleader of your life if you stay curious and you stay in possibility. And you stay, instead of saying, because it's so easy that we can say, yeah, but it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. But what if it does? What if it does work out? And staying in that mindset and trusting that, and just stepping into believing you are worthy, believing that you're here for a reason, believing that there is purpose in your life, believing it's not too late. Miracles can happen. And when you reach out and ask for help, and we all need it. I still have a coach in my life. I have a spiritual coach in my life. I've got a financial coach in my life. I have coaches and mentors and people that keep me going. And women are givers. We want to help each other, because we want to make the world a better place. And we need light bearers. We need women to step into, and this was something that really got me so upset. It was like, when did the word femininity become a bad thing? And I see it even culturally. When did the word woman become a negative word? So let's take that power back, and let's say, you know what? The feminine qualities of nurturing and empathy and caring for people, that is what is going to make the world a better place. So let's step that game up. Men don't want us to be them. They really don't. And they're not the hierarchy. They're not, if you show up instead of in a fighting way, instead of an angry way, because that's what happens. We get defensive. But if we show up in a true feminine leadership quality trait of inviting, instead of fighting, how about inviting in? But that takes someone who knows who she is, and she hasn't forgotten who she is, and she has that power inside of her, and it's authentic. There's nothing more worthwhile than having a life like that. At 66 years old, I am the happiest, the healthiest that I have ever been in my life. And I'm looking forward to aging more. I used to hide how old I was. I had a misbelief that younger was better. I thought I was aging, which I was aging. I thought I started, kind of witnessing that invisible woman syndrome. But I was doing it to myself. So when I said, you know what, hell with it. Yeah, I'm 66. And by God, I'm proud of it. And I'm so happy because, not being here is worse.
It's a privilege for sure.
It's a privilege. Yeah.
I love that. It's been wonderful having you on the show. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your experience. And I'm so aligned with everything that you shared. And I just love that we had this opportunity for you to share your perspective on all of that. So thank you so much. And you have a gift for the listeners. Can you share a little bit about your event that's coming up and also the books that you have that are available so we can drop those links?
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, shameless plug. This is a workbook that I created that's all about the 5 activator steps that we talked about. And inside it, and this is a really integrative workbook, it is exercises and tools and strategies that help you overcome a lot of the obstacles. And I am starting because I was working so much one-on-one, and I felt like I really wanted to encompass more of a group program, because I think it's so powerful when you get a group of women together, like-minded, and you're working and supporting each other. So I've started a class. It's going to be an online class in October, starts October 2nd, and it's every Monday. It's 12 to 2 East Coast time, where you have coaching with me. I'm only taking 10 women, and we're able to create a customized program. And what is it that you want to create in your life? Or what is it? You have a dream and you're like, I have no idea how to begin. This class would be for you. Not only do you get that, but you also get a Facebook private group, because these are women who are integrating and you're talking to each other. I go in every single day and I coach, and because I love to coach. I'm so in love with what I do, and I love women, and it's like, help each other. And then there's this other attribute that I love. It's called Voxer, which is an app on your phone. And it's like, the old leaving messages on somebody's phone. But what I tell women, I want to hear their process. If you're stuck, if you're in pain, if you're whatever, you can leave me a voice message, and it's private. I didn't do the group one. I did it where it's private. And I want to hear the pain. I want to hear where you're stuck, and I will get back to you that same day. So you have access to me 7 days a week. And I know people are like, are you sure you want people? It's like, you know what? It's for a month. Yes, because I want people to transform. I want people to feel so good. And usually, and we've done this before, I only do like one a year, and I might up it more, but these women that have attended these workshops before become lifelong friends. And you're not alone. You're not alone. And I know a lot of alpha women, they tend to be loners. Oh, I can do this on my own. No, step out of that. If you're saying, oh, I don't want to do that. Whatever's making you uncomfortable, and anything that I'm saying right now is probably the thing you need to do.
That's so the truth.
Right?
Yes.
Asking for help, claiming something that you're thinking, oh my gosh, can I really have this? Yes. So for your listeners, we'll give you a link so people can, register. all you have to do is put in their podcast guests and / Jen Mons, and I'm offering a 20% discount.
Awesome.
And
Thank you.
and there's a bunch of freebies on my website too. There's journal prompts. There is a meditation that was really powerful. It came to me in a dream where it helps if you're really going through this low self-esteem, low value, imposter syndrome. It's a meditation that's about 13 minutes long, and it'll take you from that state to a whole other state where it's like, wow, thank you. You reminded me of who I am. And that was a real important one I wanted to offer, because it was a meditation that I had learned when I attended Dr. Joe Dispenza for a week long. And I was on the airplane coming back from that. And these words just flowed. They just flowed. Like, what did I want to hear at that time? And I believe we get downloads. I think we get spiritual downloads. And so I thought, okay, this is working for me. I want to share it with others. So you can get that as well.
Awesome.
I love this spirit of generosity. And if anyone wants to DM me or send me a message, you can do that through my website. And I'm here because I love seeing transformation. Love seeing
Well,
that.
thank you so much for sharing. Where can they find you on social? Do you have social?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Pirie Jones Grossman on Instagram, also Facebook. And then my website is, piriejonesgrossman.com.
Awesome.
So,
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for your generous offering for the listeners as well. It sounds amazing. And we'll certainly share that and your books. But there's another book too, right? Conversations with Pirie.
Yes.
Okay. So,
and that you can get both of them on Amazon.
Okay, perfect.
Get both of them on Amazon.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been an honor to have you on the show today. And I look forward to seeing more of what you're creating and reconnecting again in the future.
Well, likewise, Jen. Likewise. I know I want to talk to you more later off camera about retreats.
I love them for sure. Yes. And thank you so much to the listeners for listening in again. And aloha. We'll see you again next week.